Brothers and sisters in Christ. 800 years ago, a wealthy young man went around gathering friends around himself and preaching to people about poverty, humility, and absolute abandonment and trust in God's providence. He began giving away his clothes and possessions to the poor. His wealthy father, furious at his seeming disregard for property, challenged him before the bishop of the city to be true to his words. The young man proceeded to take off all his clothes and handed them over to his father. His ultimate act of living concretely and genuinely the poverty, humility, and absolute trust in divine providence which he has preached. The young man, of course, was Francis of Assisi. When many years later he was ordained a deacon, he chose not to be ordained a priest in fidelity to the commitment to total humility that he had made to God and to himself many years before. Francis knew how to talk, but he knew how to put flesh and blood to that talk. He walked the walk. His actions bore witness to the genuineness of his words. My dear friends, words are easy. Too often they also come cheap. Concrete acts to back up one's words are the true measure of a man. In the Christian life as well, concrete deeds of goodness are the only authentic measure of genuine faith. Everything else is secondary. In today's gospel, Jesus was saying, I do not ask you to accept my words, but I do ask you to accept my deeds. He tells them that if they do not wish to believe his words, then they should believe him on account of the deeds he has done in his Father's name. A word is something about which one can argue, but a deed is something beyond argument. Jesus does not base his claims on what he says, but on what he does. His invitation to the Jews was to base their verdict on him, not on what he said, but on his actions. And that is the test which we, his followers, ought to be able and willing to meet. As it was for Jesus, so must it for us. As he tells us in another part of the Bible, let all people see your good deeds, so that in seeing them they may give glory to your Father in heaven. We sometimes hear it said, you have talked the talk. Now let us see you walk the walk. Jesus knew well that his works are nothing but the works of his Father. The poor being protected, the blind seeing, the widow and the orphan being cared for, the prisoners being freed, etc., etc., were the works that always made the people of Israel recognize the presence of God in their midst. Still, they tried to find fault with him and to stone him. We need to be so vigilant that we do not fall prey to the evil by using our power to destroy the growth and goodness of others for the purpose of defending our interests. My dear friends, Jesus says that if the people refuse to believe in his words, they should at least accept his deeds. The Lord is applying here the old saying that works speak louder than words. A person might say, I believe that God exists. That is clear and forceful statement. A stronger declaration would be, I indeed believe that God exists. If I indeed believe, it means that I express my belief in the way I act, and therefore I am expressing a much stronger faith. What we do, our deeds are much more telling of us than what we say, our words. There is a story of an old lady dying who for 50 years had done volunteer work for the needy people, like some of our volunteers in our church. Her parish priest, the pastor of many years, was now present at her bedside. To him, the lady, she expressed some fear. Pastor, what will I tell God or the Master when I see him in heaven? Her pastor calmly replied, don't say anything. Just show him your hands. My dear friends, perhaps God is more impressed by the work of our hands than the sound of our voice. God's voice is heard most clearly not in sounds from heaven, but in the fullness of created splendor. Amen.